President Trump's drumbeat to military action in Venezuela has exposed a tension between the hawks and the America First wings within his own party. This morning, Marjorie Taylor Greene posted this, quote, "Fix health insurance, not regime change in Venezuela." But some in his coalition are full steam ahead, and that includes my guest now, Republican Congresswoman Maria Elvira Salazar of Florida. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it. Last week in an interview, you gave 3 reasons why the U.S. needs to go in: oil, support for U.S. enemies, support for people who are fighting U.S. enemies, I should say, and drug trafficking. We're going to get to some of those reasons in a moment, but I wanted to ask you what you specifically mean by go in.
Going in, thank you for the opportunity. That means to be able to, exactly what we're doing, to be able to liberate Venezuela from this guy who is right now has kidnapped the country, who is a very important drug dealer who heads, as you know, the Suns cartel, and they are just pushing a lot of drugs into our country. So it's the duty of the commander-in-chief to protect the homeland from that type of attacks, which we consider terrorist attacks.
Are you talking about boots on the ground, U.S. boots on the ground in Venezuela?
Listen, I'm not really sure what type of military we need to use because I'm not in the Armed Services Committee, but I do know that the president has made very clear specifically to Maduro that he has to go. So the president is trying to avoid any type of armed conflict. Is the Maduro regime who's trying to stay in power and continue harming our country in many levels, as you said: national security, drug trafficking, lack of democracy. So Maduro has a very long list of very bad things that he's done in the last 25 years.
Well, there's certainly been a lot of attempt to intimidate him, to push him, to convince him, to cajole him in lots of different ways, including a phone call with President Trump. It hasn't worked so far. I just want to be clear. Are you supportive of military action that includes airstrikes and even boots on the ground if need be?
Why don't we put this into context, right? This is not what the United States, we have the legal framework. We have created, meaning the administration, the Republican Party in power, has created a framework of legality. We have the laws supporting us. This is a non-international armed conflict. We're not invading Venezuela. We're not taking out, or we're not asking to leave the legitimate president of a country. We are taking out, or we are giving him the opportunity to leave with his wife and his children.
But what if he doesn't?
Oh, well, but you know, if he doesn't, then the president has said it clearly. We have the duty to remove him from power because he is a harm to the United States.
And how far should that go? How far should that military action go?
Well, like I said, I am not an expert on this, and I'm sure that the Pentagon and the CIA and everyone that works for the president has this plan mapped out. But I do know that I talked to the opposition. The opposition is ready. I do know that we have a very solid plan. And look, this is not the first time that it happens in history. It happened. Every single president, many of the presidents have had a situation that is similar to this one. Panama with Bush, Clinton with Kosovo, I should say, Obama with Libya. So there are a lot of series of incidents.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned that. I'm glad that you mentioned that because we were just looking and thinking about just, let's say, the last quarter century of history. The U.S. has pushed for and used military action in most cases for regime change. Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, you mentioned, Syria. None of them has worked out the way American leaders.
Yeah, but you didn't mention Panama. It worked. It worked very well. I'm talking about the Western Hemisphere. I do know my Western Hemisphere really well, and I can assure you that Venezuelans who voted 80 in favor of the opposition and 20 against Maduro are more than happy, and they're welcoming a change of regime, and they're welcoming the fact that Venezuela will be again part of the international community, not a pariah that it helps our enemies. Because you know very well that Hezbollah, Hamas, Iran, hey, you know, as a news reporter, I have covered Venezuela for the last 25 years, and I can assure you that Chavez and Maduro do not bring anything good to the United States. They have given a beachhead to Iran, to Hezbollah, to Hamas, to Russia, and to China. China is their number one client for oil. That needs to change immediately. We need to be the number one client for oil.
I'm glad you mentioned oil, because that is one of the three issues that you had mentioned, and I want to ask you about that. You brought up that there is a possible windfall of up to $1 trillion in economic activity for oil companies as one of the reasons for, quote, going in. I just want to be clear. So one of the reasons you want regime change is to access Venezuela's oil?
Listen, one of the reasons why I want is because I want to liberate the hemisphere from thugs like Maduro. And I do know that everyone in the hemisphere, from Argentina to Canada, would love to deal with American companies, including the Venezuelans. They would love to have the American oil companies going in, helping them restructure their whole oil business, because it's completely destroyed. That did not happen with the Russians. It did not happen with the Chinese. So I do believe that the American presence is exactly not only what Venezuelans want, the whole hemisphere. And it's been our fault. The American governments, not only President Trump, because he's the only one who's been paying attention to the hemisphere, but for the last 25 years, the last 40 years, since Ronald Reagan, we have completely abandoned the Western hemisphere. Right now, and they have been begging, meaning the countries, there's 27 countries that compose this continent, have been begging Americans to help them to be part of their economic bonanza. So that's what's happening in Venezuela. American companies, period.
American companies taking over the Venezuelan oil
not taking
fields?
over, bringing their technology, bringing their legal framework, bringing the opportunities, bringing our know-how, the way we conduct business. That's what Venezuelans want.
Before I let you go, you used the word thug, which, makes sense. Another person who could be called a thug is the former Honduran president, Juan Orlando Hernandez.
Indeed.
Who was convicted in an American court for drug trafficking, spending 2 decades in politics in Honduras, helping to flood the United States with cocaine. You want to get rid of Maduro. You've been very clear about that. The president says that he is going to pardon Hernandez. Are you okay with that?
I would have not done that, but I'm not the commander in chief, and I do not have the pen that grants the pardons. I do not know what happened.
So you think it's a mistake?
Listen, the president has prerogative, and he has, he makes the decisions. But if I would have been in that position, chances are, but I do not know what happened, but I do know that.
Are you worried it sends a mixed message?
I think that I would have never done that. I don't think that that was what I would have done, but I repeat, I'm not in the Oval Office. I do know that right now what the president is doing with Venezuela is exactly correct for many reasons. And that's why I stick to what I'm telling you. Well, we are in an imperfect world, but I would have not taken that action as for what you're asking me.
Congresswoman, thank you so much for being here.
My
I appreciate it.
Always pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. And tomorrow,